In the world of specialty coffee, the general public thinks making an espresso is just about pushing a button and letting hot water run through some beans. They see the latte art and the aesthetic cafes, and they think it's simple. But true extraction is an incredibly violent, microscopic act of chemistry and thermodynamics. You are forcing water, heated to exactly 201 degrees Fahrenheit, through a dense puck of finely ground coffee at 9 bars of atmospheric pressure, 9 times the pressure of the air around you. A single degree of temperature fluctuation or a microscopic drop in pressure, and your extraction turns from a sweet, syrupy nectar into sour, unpalatable battery acid. I have spent my entire life learning how to control that violent heat and pressure to create perfection. I just never realized that while I was obsessively calibrating the pressure valves in my workshop, the pressure in my own marriage was building to a catastrophic explosive threshold. My name is Oliver. I'm 37 years old, and I am a lead thermodynamic engineer and custom espresso machine architect. 5 years ago, I married Clara. Clara was a high-powered food and beverage PR director and a massive culinary influencer. She thrived in the glamorous, highly curated world of Michelin star pop-ups, VIP tastings, and aesthetic photo shoots. I was the introverted engineer who spent 14 hours a day in a grease-stained apron, smelling like roasted beans and soldering iron smoke. We were opposites, but I thought we were the perfect blend. I built the impossible machines, and she sold the aesthetic to the masses. For 4 agonizing years, I poured every ounce of my personal savings, my sanity, and my genius into my absolute magnum opus. I called it the Obsidian Press. It wasn't just a coffee maker. It was a revolutionary AI-driven thermodynamic system. I had engineered a proprietary algorithm that constantly monitored the resistance of the coffee puck in real time, micro-adjusting the water temperature and pressure every millisecond to guarantee a mathematically perfect extraction, regardless of the barista's skill. It was the absolute holy grail of the global hospitality industry. Major coffee conglomerates were spending tens of millions of dollars trying to replicate it. The patents for the predictive pressure algorithm alone were conservatively appraised at $10 million. I promised Clara this technology was our golden ticket. I told her that when we licensed the hardware, we would build our own boutique manufacturing firm, and she would be the undisputed queen of the culinary world. But Clara didn't want to build an empire from a workshop. She looked at my calloused hands and my exhausted eyes, and she decided she wanted the $10 million without having to share the stage with the mechanic. And she found a corporate shark who was more than willing to help her steal the blueprint. The extraction of our marriage started to go sour when Clara's PR agency signed an exclusive contract with a massive global coffee conglomerate. The CEO of that syndicate was a man named Sterling. Sterling was 45 years old and the absolute poster boy for corporate culinary arrogance. He couldn't roast a bean, and he certainly didn't understand fluid dynamics. He was a ruthless venture capitalist who bought up small, passionate independent cafes, replaced their high-quality beans with cheap, burnt commercial garbage, slapped his aggressive green logo on the cups, and presented himself to the world as a coffee visionary. He wore custom linen suits, flew a private jet to his estates, and treated brilliant roasters and engineers like disposable minimum-wage baristas. Suddenly, Clara was spending all her time at Sterling's Glass Tower headquarters, claiming she was restructuring his global launch strategy for a new flagship roastery in Europe. The red flags didn't just quietly appear, they hissed like a broken steam wand. First, the profound, unapologetic disrespect. Clara started actively belittling my life's work. "Oliver, you need to wake up," she scoffed one evening, tossing her $5,000 designer handbag onto my pristine drafting table. "Sterling manages a billion-dollar supply chain. He controls the culture of the morning commute. You're just a guy sitting in a garage playing with hot water. You lack corporate vision. Nobody cares about your thermodynamic physics. They care about the branding on the cup." Second, the intense, unnatural secrecy regarding her devices. Clara changed the passcode on her phone and her iPad. She started taking crisis logistics calls in her car, sitting in the driveway with the engine running for 40 minutes before coming inside. Third, and by far the most terrifying, was her sudden, highly specific interest in my hardware vault. Clara, a woman who absolutely loathed the mechanical hum of my workshop, suddenly asked me exactly how the master software communicated with the pressure accumulators, and if the proprietary code was stored on an encrypted flash drive. When an influencer suddenly asks for the master encryption keys to a $10 million thermodynamic algorithm, you don't answer the question. You check the boiler for a leak. When you build proprietary AI technology that controls highly pressurized 200-degree water, you don't rely on a standard Wi-Fi password. My entire home network was routed through a custom hardware firewall that silently logged every single byte of unauthorized data moving across the local area network. One Saturday night, while Clara was supposedly at a weekend VIP tasting retreat in the city, my phone vibrated with a critical priority alert from my server. Someone was actively attempting to execute a mass file transfer from my secure development environment to an unauthorized external cloud locker. I didn't storm upstairs and pull the power cord. I simply isolated the connection, artificially slowed the transfer speed to a crawl to buy myself time, and mirrored her laptop screen directly to my home monitors. She had her encrypted messaging app open, communicating directly with Sterling. I didn't just find an affair. I found a premeditated, multi-million-dollar corporate heist. Sterling wrote, "My chief electrical engineers just reviewed the compressed simulation code you sneaked out last week. They are completely losing their minds. The micropressure logic is 10 years ahead of anything Lamarzacco or Slayer has. If we install this prototype into the main bar of my new flagship roastery in Milan and launch it next month, the investors will crown me a genius. Have you secured the master source code and the physical machine yet?" Clara replied, her words dripping with a casual, horrifying cruelty that made the blood freeze in my veins. "I'm copying the master repository from his server right now. The idiot actually thinks I care about his stupid coffee pots. Tomorrow, when he goes to his engineering symposium in Chicago, I'll hire a specialized transport crew to load the heavy machine. We'll tell him a power surge sparked a fire in the workshop and destroyed the hardware. He'll be completely devastated, but he won't be able to prove a thing. We launch in Milan, I'll serve him with divorce papers the morning after, and we'll be set for life. He's just a naive mechanic, Sterling. He won't be able to fight your corporate lawyers." Sterling responded, "You're a visionary, my love. The mechanic is going to fund our entire empire." I sat alone in the dark, staring at the glowing monitor as my entire reality shattered into a million pieces. My wife of 5 years was sleeping with a corporate parasite. Together, they were actively plotting to steal 4 years of my blood, sweat, and genius, intentionally hijack my masterpiece, launch it on the biggest stage in the world, and leave me utterly destroyed, believing my life's work was ashes. They thought I was just a naive mechanic. They didn't understand the level of absolute, unmitigated thermodynamic destruction a master engineer is capable of programming.
If you want to destroy a fraudulent coffee mogul, you don't smash his cups. You let him steal your masterpiece. You let him install it on the marble counter of a multi-million-dollar flagship store. You let him invite the wealthiest investors on earth to stand in front of it, and then you quietly turn up the pressure. I didn't confront her. If I yelled and locked the server, Sterling's army of corporate lawyers would bury me in injunctions, claim they had a verbal contract to the design, and tie me up in court for a decade until I went bankrupt. I needed them to steal the hardware. I needed Sterling to proudly stand behind that machine in front of thousands of investors and claim it as his own. So I went to work on the firmware. To Sterling's highly paid, arrogant electrical engineers, the cloned code I left on the server would look absolutely flawless. When they ran digital simulations, it would perform beautifully. When they plugged the prototype into the power grid in Milan, the boilers would heat up perfectly, and the machine would hum with quiet, efficient power. But deeply embedded in the absolute foundational math of the extraction protocol, buried so deep in the hex code that no QA tester on Earth would ever find it, I wrote a logic bomb. I knew Sterling's massive ego. I knew that at the absolute climax of his grand opening, he would want to pull the very first shot of espresso himself to prove his mastery to the crowd. To do this, he would press the prominent, glowing manual override button on the group head. I coded the pressure logic so that when the motherboard received that specific signal, the payload would execute. It wouldn't just shut the machine off, it would violently invert the pressure release valves. Instead of gently forcing 9 bars of pressure down through the coffee puck into the cup, the machine would instantly bypass all safety limiters. It would aggressively ramp the internal boiler pressure to its absolute maximum capacity, and then violently reverse the flow. It wouldn't explode the metal casing, I'm not a murderer, but it would turn the group head into a highly pressurized geyser. It would violently blast a massive spray of 200-degree water mixed with thick, muddy, wet coffee grounds directly outward at high velocity. And as a final touch, I routed the machine's internal diagnostic screen to display a massive text file. I finalized the touch. I packed my bags for the convention in Chicago. I kissed Clara goodbye. "Have a great trip, Oliver," she smiled, handing me my coffee. "Take care of the house, Clara," I replied, looking her dead in the eyes. "You know that project is my masterpiece." "I'll guard it with my life," she promised. I drove away. I let her bring the thieves into my sanctuary. I let them steal the bomb. Now, they just had to push the button.
I didn't stay in Chicago for the symposium. I went straight to the offices of the most aggressive, ruthless intellectual property and corporate fraud litigator in the Midwest. I sat down at his mahogany conference table. I handed him my original, time-stamped code logs, the high-definition security footage, and the crystal-clear iCloud transcripts of Clara and Sterling explicitly conspiring to steal the files and fake a fire in my workshop. And finally, I handed him the official, federally approved patent documentation for the Obsidian press, which I had secretly expedited and secured exclusively in my own name a month prior. My wife and her accomplice are going to illegally utilize stolen patented thermodynamic hardware to launch a flagship roastery in Milan this Saturday, I told my lawyer calmly. My lawyer reviewed the documents, read the chat logs, and slowly smiled like a shark smelling blood in the water. "Oliver, utilizing stolen patented engineering hardware to solicit hundreds of millions of dollars from international investors is massive, willful federal fraud. If he presents this to boost his corporate valuation, we won't just sue him. Interpol and international authorities will literally liquidate his entire corporate empire." "Draft the paperwork," I said, "but do not file the injunction yet. Do not stop the opening. Let him turn the machine on. I want him to put his face on it in front of the whole world." On Wednesday afternoon, my phone notified me that my workshop had been breached. Through the hidden cameras, I watched Sterling's logistics team illegally load my $1 million prototype into a truck. Clara then staged a small electrical fire near my workbench, completely destroying my spare tools and blueprints. She left a white envelope containing divorce papers on a charred desk and walked out without looking back. They were laughing. They thought they had just executed the perfect, untouchable heist. But they had no idea they had just installed a ticking thermodynamic weapon onto their own counter. Saturday morning, live from Milan, the undisputed capital of global espresso culture. I sat in my dark hotel room, watching the high-definition global broadcast on my monitors. The live stream had over 1 million viewers. Sterling was hyping up the crowd, pacing back and forth behind the pristine white marble counter, absolutely dripping with unearned confidence. The camera panned to the crowd, and I saw Clara standing there, holding a glass of champagne, looking incredibly proud, believing she had just secured a billion-dollar empire. The sleek, black obsidian press sat gleaming on the counter behind Sterling. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sterling announced into his microphone, his voice oozing with arrogance. "Tonight, we don't just open a cafe, we redefine the culinary arts. Thanks to my brilliant engineering team, I present to you the future of espresso." The crowd went absolutely wild. "And now, to christen this flagship," Sterling grinned, turning to the machine, "I will pull the very first shot." He locked the portafilter into place. He leaned in close to the machine, smiling for the cameras. He reached out and pressed the glowing manual override button. I looked at the screen. I knew the thermodynamics. My logic bomb executed. In a fraction of a millisecond, the software forcefully overrode the pressure limiters. The internal boiler spiked to maximum capacity. On the live global broadcast, right in front of the most elite crowd on Earth, the magic violently tied. With a deafening, terrifying hiss, the pressure valves inverted. Instead of a smooth stream of espresso, the group had violently detonated. A massive, high-pressure geyser of boiling hot water and thick, black, muddy coffee grounds blasted directly outward at high velocity. It hit Sterling square in the chest and face. His pristine custom linen suit, his hair, and his arrogant face were instantly obliterated by a thick, scalding layer of wet, muddy coffee sludge. Sterling shrieked in sheer terror, dropping his cup, covering his eyes, and physically diving backward onto the floor behind the counter as the machine continued to violently spray hot mud everywhere. The VIP crowd screamed in horror, scrambling backward, shielding their expensive clothes from the splattering sludge. "What the hell is happening?" Sterling screamed, scrambling on his hands and knees on the wet floor, totally unhinged, looking up at the machine in absolute panic. Then the spray stopped. The machine hissed and fell silent.
But on the massive 15-inch digital diagnostic display built into the front of the machine, a text file appeared in bright red letters, visible to the entire crowd and the cameras. Stolen intellectual property, Sterling.
You cannot unblast a CEO with boiling coffee sludge in the middle of Milan. The fallout was an absolute, unmitigated, scorched earth massacre. The video of the geyser and the glowing text went viral globally within 10 minutes. By Sunday morning, Sterling was the biggest laughingstock in the history of the culinary world. The wealthy investors who had funded the flagship expansion immediately pulled their money and filed massive lawsuits against him for gross negligence, fraud, and reckless endangerment. But the real fatal blow came from the authorities. Because Sterling had utilized stolen, patented hardware to solicit hundreds of millions of dollars from international investors, Italian authorities and Interpol launched an immediate investigation. His corporate empire completely collapsed. His bank accounts were frozen, he was ousted as CEO, and he was indicted for massive corporate fraud, facing years in prison. Clara's life was vaporized. Sterling, realizing he was facing total ruin, immediately blamed her. He told investigators that she was a rogue PR director who had supplied him with the stolen malicious technology without his knowledge. He threw her to the wolves to save himself. She called me from a hotel room in Milan, sobbing so hard she was hyperventilating. Oliver, please, the investors are suing me. Sterling dumped me. The machine exploded. You have to tell them you made a mistake with the pressure valves. Please, I have nothing. I didn't make a mistake, Clara, I said calmly, leaning back in my chair. I gave you exactly what you stole. You just forgot to check the extraction algorithm. I have the video of you starting the fire, by the way. Check your email. You've been served with a federal IP lawsuit. Enjoy the espresso. I hung up and blocked her number. During our divorce settlement, she had absolutely zero leverage. Because she was facing criminal charges for corporate espionage and arson against me, the judge awarded me 100% of the marital assets and denied her any alimony. She walked away with millions in legal debt and a felony record.
It's been almost 3 years since that catastrophic opening in Milan. After the dust finally settled and the lawsuits were paid out, I licensed the real, fully functioning, flawless source code for the Obsidian press. I didn't sell it to a flashy corporate venture capitalist. I sold the exclusive rights to a legendary, highly respected Italian espresso machine manufacturer, a company that actually understands thermodynamics, respects the physics, and treats its creators like true partners. I made enough money from that single contract to buy my own massive commercial testing facility, hire a full team of engineers, and my business has never been better. Last I heard, Clara avoided a long prison sentence by taking a plea deal, but she is completely blacklisted from the luxury, culinary, and PR industries globally. She is currently working at a budget drive-through coffee chain, handing out cheap lattes, knowing every single day that she voluntarily threw away her golden ticket to the absolute top of the industry. Sterling, completely bankrupt and ruined, is currently serving a 5-year sentence for massive securities fraud. He has no flagship cafes, no bespoke suits, and definitely no espresso. If there is a lesson to be learned here, it's a simple one. Never try to hijack a system if you don't know the engineer who controls the pressure. If your partner thinks they can steal your hard work, push you into the shadows, and take the spotlight for themselves, don't try to pull the plug. Don't fight them for the prototype. Smile, hand them the machine, let them wire up their massive cafe, and let them confidently invite the whole world to watch. And right when they think they've achieved the perfect extraction, just reverse the valves and watch their entire fake reality get blasted away. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what's the most embarrassing technological failure you've ever witnessed? Stay sharp, trust the math, and always check your pressure gauges.